सरर बह्यो हावा उडाइ ल्यायो सँगै मिठो धुन बादलमा तैरिएर फैलिएको फुल जस्तो जुन सरर बह्यो हावा उडाइ ल्यायो सँगै मिठो धुन
A lot happened in 1999. I turned 18, high school, accepted by an American. And the internet. The arrival of the internet coincided with a key moment in my life, my coming to terms with my sexuality. Thousands of men, multicolored pain, were damaged, they yell. God damn it, why did you make me this way? No, you see, there is tremendous difficulty. This is no Sin City. Here, everything is holy. The path to Gosaikunda led me to heights I had never reached before. It revealed layers of Nepal I had never seen before.
Namaste. Good evening in Kathmandu, those of you who are in Kathmandu and Nepal. And good morning, good afternoon, wherever you might be. Welcome to Niranjan Kunwar's big launch fest of Between Queens and the Cities. My name is Muna Guru. I'm a writer and a translator and educator, and I run KathaSatha. So welcome to this party today, really from everywhere. I can't see all of you, but I know that there are people tuning in from the States, from New York, from Queenstown, from Toronto. We have our keynote speaker. We have Lex from London. We have people from everywhere around the world, India, parts of Nepal. So really, really thank you all for being here. And please do bear with us and technology भनेको अब त्यस्तै हो हैन आज बत्ती पनि गएको छैन अनि अलिकता नर्भस पनि भइरहेको थियो हामी बत्ती गयो भने के होला भनेर तर बत्ती गयो अथवा केही माथि तल भयो भने चाहिँ प्लिज बी पेशेन्ट वी विल बी ब्याक we are here with you till at least 7:30 so thank you again for being here and for bearing with us. Thank you so much. So we've gathered today for this lovely book launch of a dear friend and writer, translator, and educator, Niranjan Kunwar. We've been touting for the past week saying this is Nepal's first queer memoir written in English, and we're very excited about that. And it's much more than that too, which I hope that you'll get a chance to sort of see that today. I know that a lot of you have your books, as you've seen from the video, so thank you so much for buying them, pre-ordering them beforehand. It means so much to us, really, to get this story as far and as wide as possible. So a recent interview of the book, a recent review of the book in Nepali Times says that Niranjan has, in a way, blended both universality and uniqueness. And I hope that today's program, in seeing Niranjan and seeing all of us who have gathered here for him and for this book, we get a chance to see that truly. We also have some really exciting revelations towards the end, so stay tuned with us. Without much ado, I want to introduce one of our first speakers, Ajit Baral. He is a writer, translator, publisher, founder and director of Nepal Literature Festival. Hi Ajit, I see you there. And he's, in my opinion, Ajit, you and Niranjan and everyone doing like amazing thing in this moment, both of Corona, pandemic, all of that, even to publish a book in these times and then launch it today. So I'll give you the floor maybe to say a few things as publisher, also why this book. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Muna. Thank you, Manjusri. Thank you, Lex, for being part of this launch event. And thank you, Niranjan, as well, for giving us this opportunity to be, bring out your book, your lovely book. म चाहिँ धेरै कुरा चाहिँ बोल्दिनँ, खाली हामीले चाहिँ फाइन प्रिन्टले यो किताब निरञ्जन कुँवरको किताब किन प्रकाशन गर्यो भन्ने केही कुराहरू मात्रै गर्छु. There are three reasons behind our publishing Niranjan Kunwar's books. The first reason has to do with the timing. We received Niranjan's manuscript at a time when we were proactively scouting for English manuscripts. We are basically Nepali language publishing house. That's not because of our choice. That's more because we really get a good manuscript in English. त्यो कारणले गर्दाखेरि we really, we have to, by necessity, we have to stick with Nepali language publishing matrai ho. Over the years, Nepali language publishing has grown in leaps and bounds, and with it, and with the competition, Nepali language publishing has become very robust. But the same thing cannot be said about English writing in Nepal. And that's unfortunate, and that's at a time when our access to English language is growing, expanding. This is something, this is a lacuna, this is a gap, this is something that we need to address. So we were thinking that we should do to Nepali English writing what we did to Nepali writing, give it a home, build a readership for it. So when we first received Niranjan Kunwar's manuscript, we instantly latched onto it. And the second reason is the quality of his writing. We rarely get well-written manuscript in English, and it took me just 2.5 pages to decide that we'll publish it. I would have uh, the writing is very lovely. The opening is very evocative, and I would have published this book by Niranjan Kunwar for the quality of writing alone. अब कन्टेन्टको त अर्को कुरा छँदैछ, तर for the sheer beauty of his writing, for his sheer beauty of his language, I would have gone with it. I'm so in love with his writing that I commissioned him to translate ceaseless, a prize winning novel into English. And the third reason is the subject. Yo Nepali audience ko lagi, Nepali leadership ko lagi, the subject is very novel, very new. No Nepali gay man or a gay person has ever explored their sexual identity, same-sex relationships, and their position in a very traditional Nepali society. त्यसले गर्दाखेरि पनि हो हामीले निरञ्जन कुँवरको बिट्विन क्वीन्स एन्ड द सिटिज प्रकाशन गर्न चाहिँ हामीले चाहिँ रुचि देखाएको. We are very thrilled. I'm very excited about किताब चाहिँ अब मार्केटमा पनि आइसकेको छ, लन्च हुँदैछ आज, मार्केटमा त गइसकेको पनि छ. मैले आफैले I haven't seen the book, तर I'm told that it is lovely, and म चाहिँ the first thing that I will do when I'm back in Nepal is to feel it as one does something precious. Thank you, Muna.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that, Ajit. And I really do think it is beautiful. Texture is everything in the book. Those of you who have the hard copy will know how beautiful the book is too, because Ubahang Nembang has done such an incredible job with the illustrations. Ajit is also joining us from DC, so it's early morning there. Thank you for being here, and also thank you for doing the work that you do, at every level, from publishing Nepali literature to actually putting it out in the stage, and also for your Nepal Literature Festival that you organize, which is another layer of sort of, a platform for all of us. So thank you, Ajit, so much.
Thank you, Muna.
All right, so we're moving along, chugging along. Up next, we have Manjushree Thapa, who needs no introduction. Who needs no introduction? Because we should introduce them, out of respect too for all the work that they've done. Manjushree Thapa was joking with us earlier that she's 1,000 years old and therefore giving a keynote. That's not why she's giving a keynote speech. I think we all know how important she has been to us here in the literary scene and in Nepal in general. I grew up reading Manjushree's work, and that makes me sound like super tiny and makes her sound 1,000 years old, which is why that joke I think makes sense. But I dared to write, and I could imagine a future in writing because Manjushree dared to write and send her work out there. She's one of the first women Nepali writers who wrote in English and published outside of Nepal, and it's always been such tremendous inspiration for people like me to sort of follow in her footsteps. She's also extremely generous and kind. And I've shared this story quite a bit. But when I was in grad school, I had cold called, reached out to Manjushri, just being like, "Hi, I love your work. Can you please look at my work?" And she was so generous and kind, and she said yes. And she looked at my work. She's been very involved in translations. Recently translated Abi Rai's Azurami Tata. There's a carnival today, I think was the title. And so she's been instrumental, and so it means so much for all of us that you're here today, Manjushri. If you are here, you can video yourself. There you are, yay. Hi, welcome all the way from Toronto too. So म तपाईलाई यो keynote दिन चाहिँ यस्तो stage दिन्छु.
Thank you, Muna. Thank you, Ajit, and thank you, Niranjan, for writing this book. I happen to believe that book launches should not be serious, weighty, intellectual events. They should just really be a party. So I'm going to try and not get too weighty in this keynote address, but I do want to talk about, since I am 1,000 years old, I do want to talk about the larger context out of which Niranjan's book comes, and why From Queens to the Cities is a really important work, in addition to being a really beautiful and well-written and lyrical and very moving book. But it's also an important book. So I want to, I sort of came of age after 1990, politically. That was the big movement for me. And as we will all, some of us will remember more than others, depending on our age, one of the main changes that came, of course, politically, Nepal became a democracy. But other than that, one of the main changes that came to Nepal was that all of the civil rights movements that had been stifled during the Panchayat era sort of came into being. Some movement, or the Janjati rights movement, the indigenous rights movement, those had begun in the 1950s, and they basically came back, or were able to really sort of establish themselves in a much wider sphere after 1990. The women's rights movement, which is also part of the sort of flowering civil rights after 1990, that had been sort of taken over by NGOs or by the government, this sort of mantra of development. So that sort of started to marry itself with the political side, or the rights-based side of the women's rights movement after 1990. And many other movements took place, the Kamaya rights movement, which was basically an anti-slavery movement, which shouldn't have had to take place so late historically, but it did. It had to, because slavery was being practiced in Nepal. So the Kamaya Mukti Andolan, and there were so many other language rights movements and sort of movements for identity and pride and sort of self-assertion coming up. So one of those was the LGBTQ movement. And I remember very clearly, some of us who have looked at all of the civil rights movements and their course were really impressed when the LGBTQ movement really began to assert itself after 1990, but more so in the 2000s, through BDS, through the Blue Diamond Society. Sunil Pant was the big leader at that time, and there have been other leaders before that and after that. And so that was a really interesting moment. I was in Nepal at that time, and closely affiliated with Martin Chautari, which I still keep very dear in my heart. And one of the interesting things during that time for all of us who followed the issue of language and narratives and public imagination is that there was in the Nepali language, there was a language was missing for even the terms around homosexuality. So there was, journalists were confused about how to write about this. What was the language? How do you say, terms such as somalingi, which came up at that time, were very new and were being coined at that time in discussion with gay rights activists, because there was really no traditional language for this. And there was a little bit of like a confusion around the terms. So, you know, everyone traditionally, we grew up knowing about hijras and, you know, cross-dressing and and that sort of traditional image of what someone who is not in the gender binary might be. But there wasn't the sense. So I've had family members, young people, who were gay, a young boy say to me, I don't think I'm a boy, I think I'm a girl, because there wasn't the understanding that you could be a boy and you could be gay. There was the sense that you had to then be a girl. So all of this, the language, people, I think all of us in our families have had gender non-conforming family members that we all sort of saw and we understood without language that maybe they were gay. We've all had the uncles who lived with other uncles or might have been married, but were obviously sort of, maybe gay, maybe not obviously. We've all had the aunties who lived with other aunties and, very happily. And, so it was kind of like, that saying that it's a love that cannot speak its name. And that existed in Nepali society. But this moment of trying to articulate gay rights and to try and talk about LGBTQ identities and lives was a really interesting and anxious time also for a lot of people in the community, because while there were many activists and many LGBTQ people in Nepal who wanted to start speaking the name of their love, there were many people in established Kathmandu society who also felt that they would be exposed, that they had not been read so far as non-conforming, and suddenly they would be understood as being a gay couple rather than just friends who happen to live together all their lives. So that, and so there was this, and there still is confusion around language. So I know especially around trans identities and the term third gender, which the first generation of activists in the 2000s came up with for people who are gender non-conforming. Now the younger trans activists are very dissatisfied with that language. They would like there to be a sort of more accurate and honest term for their identities. And so I think this kind of quest for the language of love and the language of identity and the language of life as in queer Nepal is still very much being sought for and being fought over, which I think is a wonderful and very creative thing to do. So Niranjan's memoir sort of comes into this kind of sphere. And, one of the things that he does in the book is it's not a political screed. So it really is like a personal look at just how difficult it is and how scary it is to be a kind of person that you're not seeing anywhere around you. So particularly as he's growing up in Nepal, and feeling different, and how scary it is to not have any role models, to not have any way of even really understanding what you are. So I think, like all of us who are, and most Nepalis are quite internationalist at this point. So the ease of finding yourself only came to him in New York. And what I love most about this book is just the journey to self-discovery and the journey to finding the language for Niranjan's own story came through so much movement from Nepal to New York and Queens, and years of sort of finding himself, and then going back, and the personal struggles, of because this kind of long struggle takes place at many levels. So one is the very personal, emotional self, the level of the self, and then there's the family. And family, we all have to negotiate family, and love comes. Family love comes with many restrictions uh, to it, and many conditions to it. And so negotiating that and negotiating the family sphere is just as difficult, and that is a journey of itself. And then there's, of course, the social aspect of it, the friends, the community. And what I love about this book is that it goes through all of these journeys. So the personal, the family, and the social, and also political, and also national one. And towards the end, where Niranjan starts writing about other people who are of the LGBTQ community in Nepal, and really places himself, or finds himself, and helps others be reflected in each other's stories, is so beautiful and valuable and important. And I just love it. So I sort of want to kind of celebrate and congratulate Niranjan on doing that, and really thank him for giving us a language with which we can, discuss all of the complexities of identity and the quest for identity, and how all of us find identity by floating through the world for so long, floating, through Nepal, floating through the larger world, borrowing terms from the English language, borrowing understandings, being part of a large international discourse, but then also engaging in the sort of local communities that we are part of. And so I feel like the movement from when Niranjan, all of the years he spent floating around the world and floating around Queens, and also Nepal, and then the journey to where he has his feet, as he does now, firmly on the ground in Nepal, in a large community of, friends, family, and the queer community that understands and sees each other, is such a valuable and beautiful journey. So I want to thank you, Niranjan, and really thank everyone, Ajit, for publishing the book. Muna, you do so much for sort of supporting these the sort of diverse stories that come out of Nepal and should come out of Nepal. Thanks for that, and for KathaSatha. So that is what I would like to celebrate today with this book launch, because I just think it's a beautiful book, but more than that, it's also an important book. So thank you.
Here, thank you so much, Manju, for that. Thank you. That's beautiful. And language, yes, definitely, is something that we receive. And I love what you said about, now that we have this language, now we can talk. We can look at identity. We can go on that road in many different ways that perhaps we couldn't. And then that keeps evolving. I love the idea also about community, because if anything this book does is bring community and carry community with it. So thank you so much for that, Manju. Up next, we have Lex Limbu, who's our guest speaker, and we'll share a few things. Lex Limbu, again, is synonymous and also so much larger than lexlimbu.com, which is not a news site, everyone, if you don't know that. A blogger at the beginning, but so much more than that, an activist, a strong voice, a writer, and most of all, I think, a connector. When I first spoke to Lex about being a part of this program, what I loved about him was what Manjushri just talked about, community. He carried with him that community. He immediately began to then like brainstorm how we could do this, and that I loved so much. And I'm so grateful for your presence here, Lex, all the way from London, midday. Welcome to Niranjan's book launch, and so happy to have you here.
Hi, Muna. Thank you so much for inviting me. And firstly, I just want to say a huge congratulations to Niranjan and everyone who has been working in front of the screens and behind the screens to bring this book out, Nepalma, internationally as well. It was very, very nice to hear from Manju Sriji for providing that context and also kind of bringing us to where we are right now. And I definitely agree in terms of having read the book. I read it at record speed because I was so excited. You know, what really stands out, because I worry that I might just give it away and speak about everything. He writes very beautifully. Niranjan has a way with articulating himself where the normalest things that we do with our friends, going to, you know, getting the train to work, that it's a joy to read this book and you have no idea how fast the pages turn. So for all people watching who might not be avid book readers, I definitely encourage you to read this book. र किताबको बारेमा चाहिँ एउटा पोइन्ट पिक गर्नु पर्दाखेरि चाहिँ फ्यामिलीको बारेमा त्यो डाइनामिकको बारेमा यस्तो ओपनली र अनेस्टली लेख्नको लागि चाहिँ आई थिंक इट टेक्स ह्युज स्ट्रेङ्थ त्यो शेयर गरिदिनु भएकोमा you know huge thank you. र अर्को चाहिँ what I really liked and what struck chord, like the mood of the book, and at certain points you feel it more, is the kind of emptiness or the void that you know Niranjan experiences, and I felt that was very profound. And somewhere along the line, I think you know what you and I share, being gay men ourselves, I feel like sometimes, is this because I am gay? भन्ने खालको त्यो questions, त्यो a lot of self questioning हुने चाहिँ जुन चाहिँ यो बुकमा पनि पाइन्छ. I could definitely relate with that. Now I'm going to take myself and tapaiharu back. When I grew up, so growing up in UK, I have always seen examples of gay men in terms of, you know, Western TV stars, television personalities, and it was only alikati हुर्किँदाखेरि चाहिँ त्यो सोच आयो कि नेपालमा चाहिँ को छ हैन, नेपालमा चाहिँ को छ, नेपालमा चाहिँ के छ भनेर. तर त्यसमा चाहिँ हाम्रो नेपालको बारेमा फर्केर हेर्दाखेरि र बुझ्न चाहँदाखेरि चाहिँ मैले त्यति धेरै यस्तो कथाहरू चाहिँ पाइन. So I think overall एउटा gap छँदैछ in terms of queer stories, LGBTIQ writings, तर नेपालमा obviously even more so. And along the way, you know, I just felt like, oh, I wish somebody would write a book, because I love reading autobiographies, memoirs. And it was in 2013 or 14 that I discovered TNN magazine ko Charlie Cholagai column. And the funny thing is, I've never actually spoken to Niranjan about this, but when I read it, I was like so excited, because I was like, oh my God, like this is somebody like me, but he is so out there that he's even writing it, and it's getting published every month in Kathmandu. And I just felt like, oh, I hope this person does more. I hope this person one day writes openly about their own stories fully, rather than these little episodes, because the episodes were so exciting to read. त्यो गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ त्यो I think हाम्रो मलाई नै I felt that there wasn't people whose stories that I could relate even more closely with त्यो समयमा. र अहिले यहाँ आउँदाखेरि यो किताब पढ्दाखेरि चाहिँ it's not only that we're two gay men and that brings, you know, that त्यो commonality चाहिँ त्यहाँ मात्र नभएर चाहिँ मलाई चाहिँ के पनि मा चाहिँ धेरै I could contextualize myself and my own story to it, is that sense of belongingness and trying to find yourself or your place in this world. And I thought, you know, yo kitab jun चाहिँ अघि मञ्जुश्री जीले भने जस्तै there's a lot of floating around. अनि त्यसमा चाहिँ I felt like, you know, this is something that a lot of us Nepali people can relate to, because our lives have literally been, you know, spread across different continents and different places. There's this one line which he has in this book, which goes along, I think it goes like, anyone who leaves one's homeland owes some kind of return भन्नुभएको छ कि अनि त्यो गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ कुनै कुनै यस्तो लाइनहरु चाहिँ कस्तो तरिकाले लेख्नु भएको छ it almost makes you think oh my god like म चाहिँ के हो अथवा मेरो चाहिँ कहाँ छ you know it made me think about my own journey as well and you know where that home is so I just yeah I'm really pleased that the book is here 2018 when Niranjan shared that you know a book will be coming out soon I was ecstatic I thought you know this is what we need in the past 2 years in the past 3 years we're seeing more and more young LGBTIQ people coming and owning their own stories coming forward they're not hiding behind and I think what we need is we need more and through this everyone has their own vice in terms of taking personal action some of us you know go to the streets some of us create lots of lengthy documents and engage with different people but this book is an example of Niranjan bringing his skills bringing his experience and taking personal action to share more to the world about the life the lived reality of a queer man because this is something we simply do not get to read or do not get an opportunity to hold especially in the context of Nepal because a lot of the times we grow up reading somebody else's stories and somebody else's society which sometimes can be alienating Tio Bande yeah, I just want to say thank you so much to Niranjan and most importantly to everyone else for making this possible because you know I think a lot of people get nervous about should we publish this should we come out and say we support this but I think right now where we are and what we're seeing you know this is so important and on that note I just want to say I have this pride flag. So Niranjan, this moment is a celebration. And since Muna said that this is a launch party, so I thought I would definitely need to bring the pride flag. So thank you so much for sharing your story because you know you're going to go on to inspire so many more people. And I think to inspire matra nabhaera pani for a lot of young people, I think it's a case of उहाँ पनि त्यो journey जानु भएको रहेछ regardless of wherever he is in the world right now त्यो turmoil चाहिँ face गरेर पनि पार गरेर he is where he is and I think we just need to see that and hear that more so yeah thank
you so much so I'm going to ask everyone to come as we are celebrating with our coffee mugs or whatever we have a toast to everyone yes and to Niranjan especially for seeing, for floating, for all of us, for letting us on this journey, truly. And that flag too, bring that color in. And this is his book. We're going to officially launch it now. Here we go. Oh, wow, you have a very fancy wrapping, Lex.
Thank you so much for sending the book.
Here we go. Ajit ko चाहिँ किताब छैन जस्तो छ so Ajit can Here we are everyone. This is the moment. Show your faces for a photo op. I can do a screen grab later. Yay. Thank you all for being here. We've spoken so much about you, Niranjan, and your work, this important work, and for taking us along on this journey. So I thought maybe I could introduce you just a tiny bit. Niranjan ko यहाँ पछाडि चाहिँ बायोमा के लेखेको छ भने म त्यो चाहिँ पढिदिन्छु है. Niranjan Kunwar lives in Kathmandu. This is his first book मात्र लेखेको छ के. And he's being very modest, I think, and also one of the things when we talked about this launch, you know, Niranjan kept saying, how do I decenter? How do I decenter? How do I not make it about me? And that's funny because in many ways this is about you, but I completely also understand that need as an educator. where and also as a being, as a human being, like to make space and to create the space today too for all of us. So Niranjan Kunwar is definitely invested in literature. He says contemporary art, queer issues, and pedagogy. He's a writer, as we all know, a translator. He has these amazing series in the record. If you haven't already read, he translates interviews conducted by Uttam Kaur with all these incredible Nepali writers. And he's also mostly an educator too. A lot of his life, I mean, you do spend a lot of on education, and we work together, and I'm honored. So I could go on, but maybe it's time that you speak, because we're all waiting for that. So Niranjan, all you.
Thank you so much, Muna, and Ajit, Manjusri, Lex. I wasn't going to start like this, but like listening to all of you made me feel that I had sort of taken a kind of a risk, and it paid off, in this moment. So I'll just say that for now, because what I want to do right now is to shift the focus momentarily from the book to all of you. As Muna said, I've been wanting to decenter. And by all of you, I'm not referring only to the few of us who are here on Zoom, but all of you who are watching this right now and who have expressed their interest in the last few weeks, few months, and few years. I say this because I want to acknowledge your presence, whether it's out of plain curiosity, genuine empathy, or for various other reasons. Whatever it is, you've shown up. And you've shown up because we know that this moment is not just about me or about this book. This moment is not only about queer issues or about literature. I really believe this, that all of you being interested in this memoir, watching this launch right now, um, your presence is an indication of so many possibilities that might unfold in the future. Possibilities to be different, to take a certain stance, to question, to commit to a cause, and most importantly, to support one another. Speaking of which, for example, like when I decided to take a stance and when I committed to this story, several possibilities suddenly became real, and especially this year, and especially these past few months, I've really been amazed at things unfolding almost magically, actually. Like once the manuscript was ready, I think magic started, because starting with Ajit and fine print, and how quickly he gave me the contract and the process moved forward despite COVID. And when I actually saw the books, like the hardcover, like I was sort of speechless, because it's so beautifully produced. And it's so much more than I could have imagined during the course of writing. And then early on, Manjusri, Samrat, and others agreeing to read and endorse the memoir, like I think that, that's given it so much more life, I feel like. Then Ubayang agreeing to draw, Rajan and Pramish with the video, and then Muna and KathaSatha team curating events around the book so nicely. And there are other events going on. So I feel like all of these are examples of possibilities becoming real. Examples that when you show up for yourself, it usually resonates with someone else. I couldn't have written this book if other writers hadn't been doing what they have been doing. If there was no Blue Diamond Society, if there hadn't been other artists and activists pursuing their own dreams. So I also want to acknowledge all of them from the past who've shown us the way, and all of you who are involved in so many creative, risky projects right now going on. And this book and my story is only one example in a way. So thank you for your presence, because it matters. I mean, this right now is an example, whether it's only on Zoom or Facebook Live, it's an example of people really coming together and being curious and, sort of trying to imagine alternate realities and stories and ways of being. And now I'm curious about what might happen as a result of your curiosity and engagement with this memoir. Um, so as Manju was saying, like, in the 90s, I mean, there was no language, there were no like role models out there. And that's where I sort of start the book. So On that note, I think I want to do a little bit of a reading, and starting right from the beginning, the prologue, the year 1999. A lot happened in 1999. I turned 18, finished high school, and got accepted by an American college. And the internet, which had crept into the Nepali marketplace, finally made it to my bedroom. The archive of the internet was expansive back then.
I think Niranjan is just experiencing um, slight problems. Oh, but त्यस्तै हुन्छ. Thank you, Manju, for being here. Yay! Solidarity. You're muted. You're muted. Yeah.
This was the moment that we finally got to center Niranjan, and of course he would have disappeared. Okay, there he is.
I don't remember which part I got disconnected, but I did mention magic, right? So I think there's a magic factor in all of this. So as soon as I mentioned the internet, I think the internet went off. So it's a bit spooky. Um, Muna, where was I?
Start from the beginning.
Okay. A lot happened in 1999. I turned 18, finished high school, and got accepted by an American college. And the internet, which had crept into the Nepali marketplace, finally made it to my bedroom. The arrival of the internet coincided with a key moment in my life, my coming to terms with my sexuality. I mustered enough courage to come out to my best friend, Dinesh. Apart from him, there was no one to talk to. Being gay, it was unheard of in Kathmandu then. Print and visual media rarely mentioned the word. Even if they did, the references were usually inaccurate or derogatory. The internet was expensive back then, tethered to the telephone line. I logged in only after my parents went to bed. Gay.com was a famous chat site. It had a list of countries in the world with gay people ready to interact. A simple click took one inside a country's virtual room populated by boys and men like me. But Nepal was not even on that list. I would enter the India room because the country was geographically closest to me in Kathmandu. Those were the days before cell phones and the online dating application Grinder were around. There was no Blue Diamond Society, the non-government organization registered in Kathmandu. I contextualized my teenage years within larger world events in an attempt to learn and find meaning in this society. And I've learned that during the early 90s, even an international metropolitan city like New York was recovering from the shock and devastation of the 1980s AIDS epidemic that had victimized, ostracized, and demonized the gay community. By the mid 90s, the term same sex marriage trickled into legal discourse in the West. Some European countries led the movement for same sex equality, modified laws, recognized civil unions, and granted rights to domestic partners. Alaska and Hawaii became the first states in the United States that took baby steps towards same sex equality by making constitutional amendments in 1998. During my teenage years, I was largely unaware of all this. In fact, I was also unaware of the challenges faced by other groups of gender and sexual minorities, primarily transgender and intersex people. Later, towards the end of 1999, when the state of Vermont declared that excluding same sex couples from marital rights violates the Vermont Constitution, I was ecstatic. Coincidentally, the college I was going to attend was located in Vermont. In Kathmandu, it often felt like I was the only gay person. Initially, I found my uniqueness simply thrilling. I thought of my sexuality as an adventure. Being a voracious reader, I knew that there was a lot to explore and experience. Indeed, books can save lives. They helped me remain sane at that time in my life. During the teenage years that led to my self acceptance, I met many big gay characters in books and chat rooms in small town America, rural Sri Lanka, cosmopolitan London, and learned about the ways they coped and lived in societies that had very little, if any, space for them. Not once, not for a second, did I feel that my desires were wrong or that I was diseased. I knew that there were people out there who were like me. It was only a matter of reaching out, of communicating, and of finding a community. So in 1999, the internet provided a door that I opened every night and traveled all over the world, meeting boys and men in places as far as Mumbai, Mombasa, and Manchester. There was one guy in particular, an aspiring journalist from Mumbai, who was building a website. We waited for each other every night inside the India room and talked about topics ranging from celebrity crushes to favorite novels. During the day, he sent me short, beautiful emails that were poetic and loving. I longed to meet him in person, even though we were separated by nearly 1,600 kilometers by air flight. Fortunately, in December, an older cousin who had been studying in Mumbai came to visit my family in Kathmandu. I was able to convince my father to let me go with him to India for a vacation. I had never stepped out of Nepal before. A lot was happening in 1999. An entire millennium was coming to an end. I was at the cusp of adulthood, and for the first time in my life, I crossed the Nepal border and took a train from Gorakhpur, headed to Delhi and then to Mumbai. I did not know then that there would be many more borders to cross in life. The meeting with the journalist was short and, in retrospect, did not amount to much. Besides, I was overawed by Mumbai, by the width of its roads, and by the massive crowds. In short, the entire world seemed exciting and stimulating. I did not know then that the following year I would see more cities in America, make friends from all over the world, and learn so much more about life and about love. In 1999, I did not know what the future had in store for me. I did not know that I would fall in love with New York City, that I would move there and start a life from scratch. I would do everything in my power to continue living in New York in the name of education, career, and lifestyle. I also did not know that I would, in fact, put myself in exile. I did not know that those would be the years of running away and hiding from family and society, from Kathmandu and Nepal. In 1999, I did not know that within 10 years I would successfully chain myself, live inside a cage, and fully succumb to fear. I would forget about the gifts of being gay and believe all the terrible stories of the world. I did not know that my 20s, a decade that would take me to great heights, would also drag me down through the deep, festering underground. I also did not know that a shift would come, burnt out and hopeless. I would decide to change my circumstances and confront my fears. I would emerge out of hiding and return to Kathmandu to face the sunshine. In 1999, I did not know that I would eventually start writing, that I would start a process of honest investigation, a process of looking back over those years and looking forward. I would ultimately resort to words to heal myself. In 1999, I did not know any of this. So I'm going to read another section. Um, yes, it's important to imagine possibilities. It's important to commit to our passions, but it's also important to remind ourselves now and then, that there are real challenges out there. There are people who are much less privileged than I've been. They are very difficult journeys. Um, so on that note, I want to read excerpts from another essay, which is at the end of the book. It's called "No One Sings Our Songs." I enter the restaurant in ambivalence. I sit across from them on the cushioned floor. A few cocktails stand close to the door. A platter of chicken arrives. The initial verb rapidly dies. What else do you want? They ask. Seafood or salad? Soup, anyone? They ask these questions and they ask a few more. But they don't ask about the places I visit, the people I meet, the things I do. They don't ask about my evenings and afternoons, about my mornings and nights. They talk about Dear Zindagi, about Alia Bhatt and Shah Rukh Khan. They mention Setu Surya. They discuss their favorite channels. They bring up Jhalak Dikhlaja. They hum those tunes, but no one sings our songs. Two more rounds of drinks arrive. The conversations start to dry. They talk about themselves, how they, my uncle's daughters, got married so young, how they became mothers before Facebook came to Kathmandu and the world suddenly became bigger. But no matter, they console themselves. They got blessed with these decent in-laws, with loving husbands. But no one counts our blessings. No one blesses us. We exist outside religion, outside society and culture. We are too Western or too wild. We don't fit into their traditions. Their rituals don't guide us. There are no magical mantras for us. The divine deities don't do anything for us. Our dashains and tihars are forever incomplete. The Puranas don't mention us. No one tells our tales. They talk about that other cousin, about his big car. They gush that he has come so far. They talk about the mansion he's building in Golfutar, about the furniture he's importing from Qatar. They admire his journey from a small village to Kathmandu's inner circle, about his network of politicians and bureaucrats, about businessmen and bankers. But no one talks about us. Our romances are unwritten, omitted from history. We don't have our Romeos and Juliets, Lailas and Majnus. There are no Bollywood heartthrobs for us. Our heroes don't get featured on magazine covers. The journalists don't put together long forms about our lives. No television program documents our struggles. No one hears our stories. Our comedies and tragedies are unethical, immoral. No one learns lessons from us. Our journeys don't matter. No one cares about our knowledge. No one knows about our fears. No one knows how we sleep, how we wake up, how we move through the world like ghosts. No one knows about our dreams. No one knows about our nightmares. We don't enter anyone's imaginations. We don't inhabit their conscience. There is no space for us. No one lets us in. No one knocks on our doors. No one asks about our homes. No one contacts our families. They think we don't need company, that we don't need help. Like primordial stars, we appear once in a while at the beginning of dark nights. We burn brightly, we shine and quietly disappear before twilight. No one admires us. We don't receive any congratulations. Our lives don't contain periodic celebrations. No one consults astrologers for us. No one plans our parties. No, there are no invitation cards printed with our names. No venue gets booked for us. No one arranges chairs for us. No one walks across the party palace floor to hold our hands. No one contacts the DJ. No one sings our songs. The cousins don't dance for us. They don't decide to drink a little bit more for us. No, they don't lose inhibitions on our account. They don't buy new outfits for our occasions. No one cracks jokes about our loves. No one passes witty remarks. There is no swambar, no janti. There is no laughter. There are no tears. No one cares about the science. No one understands our biology. Our chapters are removed from the curriculum. No, they don't have heated discussions regarding nature versus nurture. No one debates. No one puts a point across. No one cries for us. Our sorrows go unregistered. Our sobs are forever muffled. Our voices remain unheard. Our opinions don't matter. Our thoughts don't count. No one gives us any advice. No one asks about our plans. But we continue to exist. We continue to imagine possibilities, to dream up phrases and assemble them into sentences, to reach for an instrument and create our own music. We make our own plans. We construct our own structures. We continue to think, feel, walk, and run. Sometimes we fly. Like a solitary eagle, we float above the world. We observe. We have learned to watch from a distance. We have learned to be patient, to wait for our turn. We know that we will spot our nourishment soon enough. We know to circle slowly, to swoop down unnoticed. We know how to take our food to our own secluded world, to a valley that is pristine and free, untouched and unpolluted. We know how to devour, to relish, to take pleasure in every precious bite, to eat hungrily in our very own corner, away from all this noise and chatter, from these dining rooms, these dances, this din. Thank you very much once again to everyone who are watching. And once again, thank you very, very much, Muna and KathaSatha and Manjusri ji. You've really inspired all of us, Ajit, for publishing this book, and Fine Print team. And Lex, we're counting on you to take this to your young fans all over the world. And I think you'll do it.
Thank you, Niranjan. Stay put. Thank you. That was a beautiful reading. I have read that part so many times, and if you look at the Facebook comments of everyone who's watching, they're quoting you. They're also saying that they want an audiobook out of this. So Ajit, if you're listening, there could be something in there. Niranjan's voice reading this book. Thank you so much for that. Now we've come to the part where, and Niranjan stay put, yeah. We've come to the part where we're revealing an extra section of the book we're saying, and maybe it's a little bit, we're being a little extra about this, but it's not. No one sings our songs, Niranjan writes. And yet, you know, we had to imagine if this memoir could sing, what kinds of songs would it sing? Where would it take us? When you read Niranjan's book, which I know you will, as Lex said, at record speed, you will see that to say that the book heightens our senses is an understatement. We smell the coffee, which is a full character in itself in the book. We taste the eggs, we smell the burn of fear, and hear all sorts of sounds from the clubs of Sholay parties in New York City to the streets of Kathmandu. So today we'd like to reveal a list of songs that Niranjan has curated. He hasn't necessarily created them, but these are songs that he has listened to, that has soothed him, that has healed him, that has energized him, and that goes along with the book. And so we are hoping that you will listen to these songs as you're reading the book, or you would listen to these songs long after the book is done, and just jam, listen to them while you're making your coffee, drinking tea, whatever. They're all going online right now, and there's a link, a YouTube link, like a playlist that you can enjoy and jam out to. Because as Lex said, this is a party, and as Manju said, we are here to celebrate. We must, you know. So thank you all for being here. I just wanted to real quick before we close, just mention a few things that is happening. This is a launch, is a beginning, and it is a beginning in many ways. We have all of December where we're going to enjoy all sorts of different things that are happening through KathaSatha with Niranjan and fine print books. So stay tuned for all of that. It will be on KathaSatha's website and also our Facebook page where you're right now. Immediately though, that might be of interest to a lot of you, is Niranjan is holding a 2-day writing workshop for writers who identify as queer. And we have put up, the applications are open. We will take a total of 10 writers. There is a process, but it's free. Writing workshop with Niranjan for 2 days. So please apply, please spread the word. Information is on kathasatha.org.np, and we'll also publicize further in all platforms. So stay tuned for that. And lots of other things happening, like podcasts through Lalit. The Lalit podcast has an interview with Niranjan, with Itisha Giri, asking Niranjan all sorts of cool questions, which we'll get to know Niranjan more and more as the month progresses. And also conversation, the Lightroom conversation is happening, cover story is happening, all sorts of things are happening this month as we celebrate Niranjan's work, as we celebrate Between Queens and the Cities. And thank you all for being here. So if everyone can maybe come back on with their videos to say one last goodbye. And you can unmute yourselves. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here. Thank you, Niranjan. This is cheers again to you. And in all our tato pani, ekdam Nepalma tato pani piunu parcha, aile especially. So cheers to you. Cheers to Fine Print for picking this up. Thank you, Manjushri and Lex and Ajit, everyone for being here. And thank you, Niranjan, for creating so that.
And I want to say one more thank you, especially to Manjusri, Ajit, and Lex for everything you said, and for just being part of this journey, and your participation will, you believed in the story, like, the support. And we know that, writing can be, a lonely journey, and it's usually about, one person. So this memoir, as you've indicated, is not just my story, and it's just not about me. It's a larger story. So that's why all of us being here is an example of that. And I think this will be very important for, a lot of Nepali people, especially younger people. So this is, I think, our collective gift in a way. I'd like to think of it like that. I'm just playing one small role, but I couldn't have done it by myself. So thank you very much.
I want to say thank you for that reading. That was absolutely beautiful. And I do think we need the audio book in your voice.
And thank you, everyone.
Thank you all, and good night, and good day, and good evening, wherever you may be. Thank you for arriving and being here with us today. Congratulations, Niranjan.
Bye, Muna.
Bye.
Bye.